And Jane Velez-Mitchell is with us. She's a journalist, host of Jane Unchained, janeunchained.com. Jane, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I wanted to talk about body cams and police. I've been, the principal call for action of the Michael Brown family, it has been to require that every police officer in America be wearing a body cam continuously. I thought that was a great idea. I've been pushing it on the program, but I've had a number of people call from towns where they are using body cams or where they've had long experience with dash cams. And it seems that more often than not, when the police are involved in an altercation where that might reflect poorly on the police, for some reason the body cams malfunction. I'm curious your take on all this.
Well, that's an interesting conspiracy theory. Every day brings a new conspiracy theory. I think overall, dash cams on every officer who is patrolling in America, plus dash cams on every squad car patrolling in America would go a long way toward ending the kind of divisions and the anger, the hostility we've seen in Ferguson. Think about it. Had there been a camera on Officer Wilson at the time, we wouldn't have to be arguing. We wouldn't have to have this global debate over whether Michael Brown's hands were raised or whether they were like this as he charged toward the officer. We would see.
Or did
what
he even
happened.
charge toward the officer?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Some people say he was surrendering with his hands up, surrendering peacefully. Others say he was like this in a charge motion, which would lend credence to the officer's claim that he shot him in self-defense. And so we wouldn't be arguing about it. We wouldn't be filled with conjecture.
No, I agree, and I'm like I said, I'm still a fan of body cameras, but I just two caveats. Okay, the first one was, as I said, there are, and you can Google this, you can easily find this. It's not a conspiracy theory. Very, very frequently, when civilians make complaints against police who are wearing body cameras, the body camera was malfunctioning, the memory card can't be found, the thing wasn't charged, it wasn't turned on, whatever.
Well,
fill in the blanks.
Let me say this.
No, well, I have a solution for this, if I may.
Human nature. You know, police reports have been doctored probably since there were police reports.
No, I get that, and I'm trying to offer a solution here. Right now, the presumption of innocence in the American justice system is with the defendant. The presumption of guilt has to be demonstrated by the court. However, there are exceptions. The most famous exception is the breathalyzer. When a police officer asks you to blow into a breathalyzer, if you say no, you have lost your presumption of innocence. You now have to prove your innocence. What if a police officer, when confronted with a civilian claiming that the police officer broke the law or broke policy, if they had turned off their body camera, as it clearly has happened and has happened in a number of situations, if they turned off their body camera, they lose their presumption of innocence. Now they have to demonstrate that they themselves are innocent rather than the other person having to prove that they're guilty. What do you think?
I agree. I think it should be a fireable offense if you turn off your body cam. And as for them, quote unquote, malfunctioning, what we do, well, as you know, is you have a microphone. You always have two potential mics. If one drops out, you have another that's going to back it up. Right. So that's what they should do. Here's the problem with our justice system, reactive justice. Oh, they couldn't afford to have badge cams in Ferguson. They were in the process of installing some form of badge cam.
Well, they couldn't afford to have tasers, apparently, either.
Yeah, and yet now that all hell's broken loose, oh, let's throw caution to the winds. Money's no object. You know the millions of dollars it's going to take, not just the investigative work, but cleaning up the mess in Ferguson. So This is our reactive justice system. And I'll tell you something, it's got to end. The millennials don't like it. I think that those of a certain generation love the conflict. I mean, that's human nature, whether it's Shakespeare or reality TV. You don't go to reality TV to watch ladies sitting around politely having conversation. You want table flippers. You want hair pullers. Right. It's the same thing with our culture. I believe that our cultural forces created this horrific conflict in Ferguson that unfortunately was seen around the world. And really, I felt that while there are tremendous problems with racial profiling, there are tremendous problems with police brutality, this was not the case to make Exhibit A.
we don't. I don't think that we get to make that choice. The circumstances conspire. What is it? Man plans and God laughs.
Exactly.
The circumstances are such that this is the case that we're talking about. The other concern that I had about body cameras, and I'd love to bounce it off you if you don't mind. We're talking with Jane Velez Mitchell, journalist and host at Jane Unchained, JaneUnchained.com. Is this the technology that you and I are talking about? Is basically a camera that's connected to a recording device that's located on the police officer's body. That is not the current state of the art. The current state of the art of technology would be a body camera which is connected to the cloud, which is connected continuously to the local police department, and the officer wearing a pair of Google glasses, or at least a police officer version of it, so that as soon as that body camera sees your face, facial recognition software kicks in, instantly recognizes you out of all the 300 million people in America, presents for the officer the information on the screen that he's seen projected into space in front of him, your name, your address, your age, your arrest record, anything about you that might prejudice him or her in one way or the other. A, that concerns me, and B, that because that police officer is performing a public function, there's a certain required level of transparency, and if it's not continuously transparent, it's certainly transparent through things like a Freedom of Information Act filing. Right now we're talking about community policing and how we need more Officer Katie's. This woman who in Madison, Wisconsin patrols by walking the beat, one of the worst neighborhoods in town, and everybody loves her. She's a white woman in a black neighborhood, and the kids follow her around, and she's just she's a great cop. I wonder how many parents are going to say to their 12-year-olds, yeah, go out and talk to Officer Katie, if they know that their 12-year-old is going to immediately have her face put into a facial recognition database, and every word she says is going to be recorded forever, and it's going to be in a database that's equally accessible to the local police department and the NSA.
Well, here's my thought on all of this. The camera, I think it was Dan Rather who wrote a book called The Camera Never Blinks. The camera does not have a political party. It doesn't have a racial preference. It is a camera. It simply records. So I believe that badge cams will help everybody involved. There have been cases of police officers being accused of things that they haven't done. Indeed, in the Ferguson case, there were claims by some people that, for example, Dorian Johnson, the young man who was with Michael Brown, that this officer just pulled up and basically became incredibly aggro and attacked them right off the bat. And so if the camera reveals that accusation isn't true, that's going to help the police. On the other hand, if there is a case of police brutality and police often forget they're on camera or they have lost control of themselves and an act occurs, that is also caught on tape.
No, I get all that.
I agree with you 100%. We are technologically behind the 8 ball when it comes to anything in government. I have a phone where I can see my elderly mother sitting in a chair 24/7 by hitting, I have an app.
Right.
Now, why is it that I can figure that out and that there's a technology for that, but there isn't more high tech?
But do you want that? I mean, as a libertarian, do you want the government profiling you every time you bump into a police officer?
Well, let me say this. First of all, I think all of this should give pause to those who are right to carry advocates. Because if the government takes over, it's not going to be a battle on the streets with pistols. It's going to be them looking at us with their high-tech surveillance methods. That's how they will control the populace.
We already have drones over American cities. Interesting. Jane Velez Mitchell, host of Jane Unchained. JaneUnchained.com is the website. Jane, thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for having me.
Great talking with you. 15 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So, body cams, are we on the edge of a police state, or is this the magic bullet, or kind of none of the above, all of the above, something in between?